Alright, for this video we want to go over a sample form 7206, which is the self-employed health insurance deduction. And in this example we're going to look at a taxpayer here, John Q. taxpayer. We've got his full 1040 here. And John is a shareholder in an S corporation which pays for his health insurance premium. So we're going to see how the 7206 reporting is a little different for S Corp shareholders. So we've got the 7206, we've also got John's Form W-2 for the year, and then we've also got one slide here covering some background on the 7206 and then more details on the fact pattern. So the 7206 form is included with your Form 1040, and it's used to calculate how much of a tax deduction you can claim for your self-employed health insurance premiums. Now, the deduction is going to be limited generally to the net earnings from your self-employment connected with that trade or business. Now, S Corp shareholders is a little different, right? So S Corp shareholders, it's going to be limited to the amount of Medicare wages that are reported on that W-2, and so we'll see how that reporting looks a bit different. Now, self-employed health insurance, it applies basically in three different areas, right? So if you're a Schedule C sole proprietorship, you can generally claim this deduction. If you're a partner in a partnership and you actively participate in that business and they pay for your health insurance, you can also do the 7206 to claim the deduction. And then lastly, we have our greater than 2% shareholders in S corporations. Now, the deductible amount of our self-employed health insurance premium, it's ultimately going to be reported on Schedule 1. So we use 7206 to calculate how much of a deduction we're allowed, and then that amount will flow through to Schedule 1, Part 2, line 17. So let's look at the fact pattern here. We've got John taxpayer. He's 100% owner of an S Corp, and he actively participates in the business, so he's treated as an employee and paid a salary of $45,000 for the year. Now, the S Corp also pays for his health insurance premiums, which are $5,000 for the year. Now, because he's a shareholder employee, the health insurance premiums have to be included in his federal taxable wages. So that's Form W-2 Box 1, and they're also reported in Box 14. The health insurance premiums, however, aren't included in your Medicare or Social Security wages. So if we have a look at John's W-2 here, we can see his total compensation in Box 1 is $50,000. And that is the $45,000 in base compensation plus the $5,000 of shareholder health insurance premiums. So this is why we have a greater amount in Box 1 than we do Boxes 3 and 5. So his total federal wages subject to taxation, $50,000, and the amount that was subject to Social Security and Medicare tax is $45,000 each. Now, the last item is the Box 14. So Box 14, S Corp health insurance of $5,000 is reported down there. When you're normally an employee and you have your health insurance paid for by the employer, it'd be reported in Box 12. However, in this case, because it's a shareholder employee with health insurance premiums included, we report that amount in Box 14. All right, so now that we've got that all straightened out, how do we do the 7206? So on line 1, we enter the total amount that was paid for the health insurance coverage, right? So the $5,000 total there, that's the amount that was reported on John's W-2 in Box 14. And then it does say here we should not be including these following amounts, right? So we don't have any of those amounts included, so it's not an issue. And we don't have any coverage under qualified long-term care insurance contracts. So ultimately, the amount we're working with here is line 3, $5,000. Now, line 4 is where we would generally enter our net profit from the trade or business where the plan was established. So if we look at Schedule E for John, we can see that he's got the S corporation income flowing through, and the amount of non-passive line 1 ordinary income is $120,600. However, because this is an S corporation, we don't complete lines 4 through 10. So note here, it says don't include conservation reserve program payments exempt from SE tax, and if the business is an S corp, skip to line 11. So we can skip lines 4 through 10. we go straight to line 11. On line 11, it asks us to enter our Medicare wages, so that's box 5 of Form W-2, from the S-Corp in which you are more than 2% shareholder and in which the insurance plan is established. Well, if we have a look at John's W-2, we can see his box 5 Medicare wages are $45,000, so we report $45,000 on line 11. Now line 12 is blank because we're not filing the 2555 for the foreign earned income exclusion, so we can leave that empty. Line 13, we subtract line 12 from line 10 or 11, whichever applies. In this case, it's line 11. So we subtract from line 11 and we're left with $45,000. Now, line 14, the amount of health insurance deduction that we'll actually be able to claim is the smaller of line 3 or line 13. So line 3 is $5,000, line 13 is $45,000, so the smaller amount is going to be the $5K. So in effect, we are being able to claim a full deduction for all of the health insurance premiums that were paid and included in our box 1 wages. Now, it does say here, now we want to report this on Schedule 1, line 17. So if I scroll up to Schedule 1 where we have additional income and adjustments, if I scroll on down to line 17, you can see here we have our self-employed health insurance deduction for $5,000. All right, so we are getting a deduction for the full amount of that health insurance, and then ultimately these amounts are flowing up to page 2 of the 1040, page 1 of the 1040, right? We have our additional income from Schedule 1, and then we have our adjustments to income, so the reduction from Schedule 1, line 26. So in effect, John is including the shareholder health insurance premiums in his line 1A wages, but he's getting a deduction down here, so those cancel out. And then the actual deduction that's being claimed at the business level is included within this line 1, $120,600. So there's a lot of kind of reporting that goes on with these shareholder health insurance premiums, but ultimately the deduction is included in that K1 amount. So the line 1 ordinary income amount that's flowing through to John does include that health insurance deduction. Alright, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I do have a separate video on 7206 for partners, so go ahead and check that one out as well if you haven't already. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thanks.